Welcome back from the break. I hope you had a cup of coffee and a bit of fresh air. Are there any questions so far? I can see there is a. Oh, that's just a hello. Um, any questions so far? Makes sense? Otherwise, you. Okay, Carol is. Why not? Tell me what's. Okay, fine.
Well, it does make
Okay,
sense.
that's good. That's good. Um, Yeah. Okay. Let's go on then, and remember to stop me. I'll try to explain this in a way that's not so heavy, or at least not so. I think there's an understanding of this that is not does not need to be so difficult. When you read many of these things, especially the things we're going to now, the psychological literature is filled with mm, constructed concepts and difficult expressions, and that's because they need it in a technical sense relating to therapy or development models or something. We don't need it in that way, not to that extent. So sometimes there is a simpler way, I think, to express it. Um, One of the things that is an increasing um, of increasing interest, and that's both in psychology and in sociology. It's beginning to grow into organization theory, as you can see in the book because it's about accelerations of organizations and societies. And as you can see, that's part of your book now. It wasn't 2 or 3 years ago, 5 years ago, when the former edition was there. It's beginning to grow into discussions in of society and politics. It's beginning to grow even into from psychology and sociology into, say, um, uh, 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 political science and into even into philosophy. I think there's a beginning discussion of some of these. Sociologists has a philosophical nerve too, so the discussion is introduced. I'm not sure that it in philosophy or political science actually get the attention this deserves, but it is there, and that means especially there is a guy called Hartmut Rosa who wrote a book called Social Acceleration, which has been very important on this matter. Now the point is, point is this: companies and particular societies have been um, um, trying to increase their efficiency and productivity for many years now. And what happens is that, in addition, uh, the internet comes in and makes us able to produce solutions very fast. We can get knowledge, or at least information, not knowledge, but information that we need very fast. We can make applications, agreements, development much faster than we could before. And it also means that the people who are responsible, or the people who works with these things, of course they have other resources, but it also means, because the whole process is going faster, these people have to work faster too. And that's why they get so stressed that there's burnout is becoming more and more uh, essential problem relating to change and change management. And that's what I'm saying to you is uh, it's not doesn't change. It's not. It doesn't matter if this is societal change or organizational change. This is a problem that we are facing, and it's some people would, and I agree with that, actually have it as a part of the sustainability. That if a process or a thing is over accelerated, um, it's not sustainable. And I think that's why we had, or at least for a period of time, we had the slow movement. You know that the slow city, slow cooking, uh, slow living movement as a part of um, the sustainability movement. Because because if it's over accelerating, as you can think of a machine, if it's over accelerating, it can do so for a short time, but then it will burn down. But what does it mean that an organization is burning down? It means that either it is overloading. Um, that means that there is too much to do, but not enough time or resources to do it. You know, that's a classical one. But then you can also have multi-loading, which is a concept that is used when you have too many different activities that you have to overview. And that's one of the problems that very often is faced by my category of employees. Many teachers are not really overloaded, I think. They're not overloaded with too many activities and too little time to do it, but they are multi-loaded. That means they have too many different activities going on the same time. Um, and then there is, of course, the perpetual loading. When you have an organization that operates when to make the processes more efficient, you are giving at that time you are giving the employees you're demanding something extra of the employees. Do things like that. Do things in that way. And at some point, all people need to step back a little and say, hmm, "This is good enough. Now I can re-enter my routine, and from that I can at some point." Develop it into what I think is nice or fun and what I think makes sense in my job. But if you only always have this change projects going on with efficiency, they are going to ask, when is this never going to stop? We've been doing this all the time. And then we have a rationalization, and then we do things better, and then we do it more effectively, and that's fine. But just afterwards, we have to do it even more effectively. And they're saying, come on. It's fine that we do it sometimes, but not all the time. Sometimes we just need to go to work and do what we do and sort of mm, it's not that you should be lazy, but that you should sort of relax into it, if you know what I mean. That you sort of have are at ease or in balance with your work, because in one sense you could say the moment you are improving your work or your work processes, you are not in balance, are you? You're trying to get to a place where you are not, which is not balance, but a push in a certain direction. And that's what, think of Cotter, that's what it's all about, isn't it? Pushing people to do things in a way we want them to do things. And that's also why um, there is a classic thing. I like this curve, especially because in many big companies and many public companies, this is a model that you find quite often. You have a task that we need to do things in another way. Okay, then while you're doing the change project, of course, the productivity and the productivity and and the productivity. I'm sorry, just I'm sorry. There was just a person walking in through my door and said, "Oh, is this a private home?" Yes, it is. Okay, thank you. Okay, all right. No, what was that? Was that you have um, uh, this when you have the change project going, of course you need to allocate resources for the change project itself, which would mean that in that period of time your productivity would decrease, right? Because you need to assign or these assign resources to these projects. So that also means that then after that, it will be easier to say that the uh, effectivity increases afterwards because it has been decreasing to the change project. So you could say, perhaps you say, we do it much better, as I said here, we do it much better as before, but actually, looking here, the increase is not that big, and compared to what all this has been doing to you in frustrations and in economic taking up economic resources, um, you might not that might not be worthwhile actually. So remember always that change projects might be good, but they cost money. So the the efficiency that you gain, is it worthwhile relating to the change project that you are working with? Um, you could, of course, say no, yeah, but we need to force the people here to produce and perform in exactly the same way that they used to. But then you will definitely have some kind of overloading, multi-loading, and also perpetual loading probably, um, because they wouldn't be able to see the end of it. And then you would have this problem that they will burn out here. Right? So remember that from Cotter also, change management is of course is to use all means to get them there. It's motivating them, it's threatening them, it's showing them the direction, but it is also to give them the resources to do what they have to do, and that's especially in number two here. The powerful team in Qatar is designed or assigned to help them help themselves doing this, and the empowerment too is about that too, right? Making the change possible means making the change possible is Cutter's own phrase for number five. Um, um, Making empowering the change or making the change possible means that you have employees who have the resources and the motivation to do it. All right. Um, so, when they respond to change, when you propose a change prospect, um, um, what then? Um, um, I mean, you could just run them over. right? You could just say, this change is happening. You can play along or not. What would happen? Well, in this model here, uh, you have a distinction between denial. Sometimes you would have people saying, this is not happening. And that might be strange, but think about this. Um, it might not be so strange after all. Think of that you are in a situation where you are in a company, and then a manager come and say, "We're going to make some major change," and then the staff would say, "Yeah, yeah, true." And then afterwards, when the manager is gone, they would say, "Yeah, they say this all the time. They come in and say, now we need to do this and now we need to do that." But in the end, it's all bullshit. And these manager will be replaced by another manager. And when the other manager comes, he will come and say, yeah, we need to do this change. And we do just as that. So just pretend nothing happened and then let them do whatever they want and say whatever they want, and we will be just fine. That's being in denial, right? Um, that's actually saying this is not happening. It's just hot air from uh, the managers. So that means this denial is actually more um, um, something that is important for to recognize than you would think. And actually, if we go back to Cotter, this establishing a sense of urgency for the proposed changes is exactly a response to, for instance, people who are in denial, or at least partly in denial. Perhaps I would say perhaps this is happening, but it's not happening to the extent that the managers think. It's not going to be a deep change. It's just going to be some kind of surface change. So fuck them. Um, and so um, this denial thing is very common, much more common than you think. And what I've been saying is that it is also in many of the other models we've been using or looking at so far, this is already taking into account. Um, uh, of course, um, there's another response, namely anger. Um, why is this happening to me? What did I do wrong? Um, and very often the response to this would be explaining. Um, then, oh, then there would be some people who would try to bargain. They would say, all right. People who bargain in this way would actually be uh, fe fearful. They would be scared. So they would say, "Oh my God, I am. What do I have to do?" Well, you push yourself up a little, strengthen your back, and you say, "I have to see what I can do in order to mitigate loss. That is, making my loss as little as possible, and I do that by negotiating." So they would say, sometimes they would cover this into proposed contribution. What if I do this? Could I have that role? I would like to be this kind of manager or something. And the real but the real point here at this level, if you have this bargaining response, is not to contribute actually. Because as you can see, it's not an acceptance. The acceptance is down here. No, the bargaining is that they want to be in charge so they can make sure that that it does not go entirely wrong. And if that's the case, you would have very often a, a middle manager that will actually sit on a trusted place in the change project and preventing it from happening, or at least preventing from the change to become that deep or significant as we want it to be. And then, of course, there's depression. Um, I don't know what to do now. I'm not. I'm not a person who fits into this modern organization. I uh, I don't know what to do. And then, I mean, um, with people with depression, of course, you could say if it's truly clinical depression, they are for some kind of psychological treatment. But actually, you could say there are some things that you can do that is already built into the models we talked about so far. Namely, um, the powerful team here, the steering coalition, is supposed to take um, as I said before, an assembly point. It's supposed to be the center of where the staff can go to them. So that means go to a person, that is there and ask them to help. Another thing would be sometimes it's related to depression is related to loss of status. And in that sense, it could be some kind of regaining a status or getting a new status. The best example I know is when you suppose you get a new economy system, and before you were doing all the accounting in Excel, and Karen, who's been in this company for 20 years, she was the person that you would go to about the accounts because she was the Excel master, right? And she was doing all these things, but she's not into the new economy system. She don't understand it, and now she's losing status because it's not her that everybody's coming to anymore. So what could we do for her? Well, give her a new role where she would be an expert user of something, where on a regular basis, people would need to come to her for questions, and then it would be easier to get her through because she has regained or we have created anew some of the status that she has lost before. And then there is the acceptance, of course. What are we going to do about this? How can I uh, what am I going to move forward? And I think this is a classical model of individual responses to change, and also both in the positive way, but also, as I mentioned in the beginning, in the negative way, because there is actually a lot of responses to change that is more positive than this. This goes from really bad to that's okay. But sometimes you have very enthusiastic employees that are joyful for these new uh, changes. And it's important that you see that and that you reward that because they could be your most important allies. So if you have somebody who said, "Oh, this fusion or this new technology or whatever is really a good idea," if you um, give them autonomy, if you give them appreciation, they might be the people who would go around in the organization and say, "This is a good idea. Don't worry, this is gonna be great. I think that's and that's a story that you want to thrive in the organization, because the modern way that we normally uh, have um, um, that we normally communicate values not from the management and down towards increasing, but also between, is in terms of stories. And so what we want is the stories to thrive about how good this change gonna be. Um, yeah. So this is more. This is a model about. Yeah, we don't need that. Never mind that. Okay, so um, in the end, I would like to make some comments on the organization if we are going towards an innovative organization. Many companies and public organizations want that right now. What kind of organization then is it that we want? And I have two slides. Um, one about the innovator that we could end with, and one about the organization. Yeah. There's been written a lot about that. In at the bachelor's, we have almost a module that's called theoretical innovation. That is more or less all about that. Um, so there's a lot of theories, both about market behavior and psychology and economics and organization theory and process management and project management and God knows what that is about this. um, um, the challenge is important. It means um, you in if you have a truly innovative innovation, people are not afraid of challenges. Uh, they are thriving from it. So in an innovative organization, you need a culture where people uh, love a good challenge, so to speak. Um, so um, uh, you could say challenge is a parameter where you say if you have an innovative organization, they would be thriving and responding positively to challenges, while in a non-innovative organization, people would be mm, alienated is the best word to challenges. They would think, why would we have to do that? Why does it need to be so hard? Why would we have to um, do this? It's hard, it's difficult. We are not able to do that. Or sometimes even worse, there is no solutions to this kind of thing. We don't want to go in that direction. Um, the second thing is the level of freedom. Um, it's very simple. If your employees have freedom to design their own working processes, they would be able, and perhaps on a regular basis, trying to optimize the way they work. But if they work alone from um, standard operating procedures, somebody else will decide for them how to work, and that inhibits innovation because uh, you would never get new ideas about how to work and how to develop your work if you don't feel responsible for your own work process. And that means, so what I'm saying is, the more procedures you have, it's very simple. The more procedures you have in an organization, you're less innovative it will be. And many colleagues have asked me, I don't think, Peter, that that's a universal rule, but I can tell you it is. There's no exceptions. Um, and secondly, um, um, what you could do in order to test this is to say, if when you come to a company, procedures, when we introduce a new procedure or a new template or a new uh, uh, um, formalization of a process of some kind, everybody would agree you should only do this if it's very, very important. And in some company, it is important. That's not what I'm saying. I'm actually thinking that in some companies, you need to have a lot of procedures and you need to have a lot of formalization. But that doesn't change the fact that it does inhibit innovation. These companies would be bad at innovating. And I mean, yeah, that's just how it is. Now, okay, so um, if you think it's very, very, very important with this new um, uh, procedure, then it must be important enough, you could say, for a test that you should discharge another procedure. So that means every time you add a new procedure, it should replace another. And right there, it's a test to if you're actually as innovative as you sometimes think you are. Um, I tried it with my manager, and they thought it was a good idea until it came into practice. Next time there was a new procedure was introduced, I said, "Fine, which procedure is it then that it replaces? Which procedure are we dispensing with right now?" "Yeah, but we don't think you should take it that literally." And said, "Yes, yes, you do, because otherwise it's just hot air. It's just something you say." So there's a lot of people who say that they are more innovative than they really are. Uh, and what I'm also saying to you, and it's a most important learning, I think, it's about the organizations, right? The organizational structure is the key to whether you can be innovative in this company or not. So, next step, next parameter is support of ideas. You know the drill. Somebody comes up with a new idea, and other people say, "Nah, nah, we've done that before. Nah, it's not going to work. It's not professional." I heard that a lot. It's not professional. This is not serious. You don't know what you're talking about when you come with an idea like that. And I'm not saying that all ideas are good ideas. I'm saying that in an innovative company, you have a support of new ideas. So you could say, perhaps you think, "Oh, this is really a shitty idea. It's really bad." But that's not what you say. You say, "Oh, it's great to have so many new ideas." I um, I think we should look into what this idea entails. To be honest, right now, I can't see it working, but perhaps that's just me, because I never heard an idea like this before. Perhaps you did, but that's not the point. The point is that you in generally support people who come up with new ideas, because if you get that culture up and running, you would have a lot of ideas coming around from all kinds of partners, volunteers, staff, and then your main problem is to select the good ones, not to get the ideas in the first place. Yeah. Then there is the issue of trust and openness. Uh, that's difficult. Remember when we had the innovation day in uh, in the fall on the first semester? We had a lot of talks afterwards about if this process was okay or if it was no good or something. But in the end, I think it was about the openness and trust to the facilitators and vice versa. Um, if you don't trust the employees or your manager, you will not open up, and that means that you won't express all these ideas that you have, and then eventually you would stop getting all these ideas. Then there is the dynamism and liveliness, it says, and I would rather call it energy. It's very simple. People who work on a high energy level get more ideas than people who work on a low energy level. And you can find it in anything from creative processes to everyday work in a shop or in a consultancy company or in a production factory. If people work with high energy, they get more ideas than if they get with low energy. So if you exhaust people out of energy, they would get fewer ideas, and they would. I mean, that means the level of creativity will fall. And that comes into the next one, how playful you are. And I think that's about playfulness and humor. That's about the company. I think it's important. There's a good room for humor, playfulness. Yes, there are some innovative companies that are very playful, but there are also very innovative companies who are not playful, I think, in the same way, at least, as others. So take it with a grain of salt. Playfulness, yes, but perhaps in different ways in different companies. Um, then we have the four remaining. Um, it's important that you debate ideas with an open mind. Um, it's important that you realize that you can have a discussion, conflict of ideas, it says here, um, um, without it being a personal issue. So that means you could have solutions that you discuss with another colleague without it being a personal matter between you and him. Of course, there is a thing about risk taking. Um, Innovation very often involves a lot of risk taking. It involves a lot of, and it's very expensive, which mean, and you never know whether you are actually going to get the money back or not. And the last thing is, um, you need to associate, you need to allocate resources and time to implement and test new ideas. Um, um, if you are are not able to do that, allocating resources for that on an everyday basis, you're not an innovative company. It will not. It is not going to happen. So, if you think on the individual level, that means that you have, um, I think, five habits of innovators, and you can think about yourself. First thing is, are you good at seeing connections with and associations with other between some things you work with and problems and potential solutions with others. Secondly, um, questioning. That's what I've been trying to press you a little with, entering some philosophy from here and there. Always question what others take for granted. That makes you more innovative because questioning opens up for new solutions or new possibilities, at least. Make observations. Um, Especially those of you, I know that some of you are very attentive to detail. That's very important. Look for things that, small things perhaps, that actually opens up for a new way of things, of doing things. Then innovators are very much to experiment with things. Let's try it. They don't use a lot of they don't use a lot of time to think about whether or not they will do something or not. They are risk takers. So they would be very experimental. Let's try it. Right? And finally, um, good innovators are also good networkers because most of the time, um, these ideas that you come up with, you cannot pull it through, not even on an experimental prototype level, on its own. So you need networks. And it's not, I'm not talking about external networks. It could be, but it could also be internal networks. And I think there's a direct line to the volunteer army in Cotter's 8 steps, because if you are a networker, you would be that both in your private life and on and in your company at working time, and that means that you will be able to gather people around you who would be able to help you with these ideas, and that depends, of course, on the communication. It depends on the idea itself, and also depends on you as a person, and therefore there is actually not that many people who are excellent in gathering people around them in order to test new ideas, but they do exist. Like in the Lord of the Rings, where the Hobbit is going on the quest for the ring, and their success actually is due to not their own efforts, also their own effort, but it's due to their ability to get people to help them along the way. The elves help them, the humans help them. Everybody helps them eventually to make them succeed, because they have a just cause, and because they have a way around them that makes people like them. So, all right. Um, that was what I had to say today. I think you might have classes at 10. So if you need to go to the toilet or something before, it could be a good idea that we stop now. Uh, any questions or comments so far?
No, I think everything was clear.
Oh, that's good. I will upload the videos in the workspace, and